Hello, everybody. I'm John Melby with Become Demand Driven. Thanks for joining me today in the Idea Lounge. Today, I want to talk about supply chain and inventory management and the struggles we have with inventory flow. And to do that, I'm going to have to transfer us to the actual Idea Lounge. Here we are. And as you can see behind me on the whiteboard, I've drawn a little bit of a diagram. It's a very small diagram and maybe a little bit simplistic, but this is how the thought processes work in supply chain. We start with a delivery target. We need to have inventory brought to us in place, ready to use by this date. That's the target. We need something to arrive. And that is determined by an order from a customer or from a sub-supplier. Somewhere else in the supply chain has determined that we need to complete something by this date. So simply for purchase parts, we're going to talk about a delivery target of the purchase parts we need in our raw material, driven by a order placed by a customer. Now, that delivery target then determines when we need to release the purchase order to our supplier. In the old days, if I don't like that phrase. In the prior time period, long before now, when you had plenty of time, you you could get your raw material delivered in 10 or 15 days. Very quickly, you could get your raw materials. Those days are gone. And now we have lead times to get our raw materials somewhere between 10 days and 90 days, and often going to 6 months or even a year. We have to place our order sometimes a year in advance in order to get a confirmation of that delivery date. Now, our customers that are placing the orders, which are driving that delivery target, they are not giving us a year of visibility. Sometimes they don't even hardly give us a couple of weeks. And the reality is that we, as the supplier to that customer, we have set a lead time that makes sense to us. Maybe it's 5 weeks or 8 weeks or some number of time. And based on that, or just similarly, our suppliers have given us a lead time like that 90 days or 180 days or 365 days. They have given us a lead time that makes sense for them. Now, you may have noticed a little bit of a gap there. If my customer is giving me, say, 90 days lead time and letting me know what this delivery target is 90 days in advance, but I have to place my order 180 days in advance. Do you see the dilemma there? So what often happens is, even though I have this delivery target, I am having to place this PO release, this purchase order release, without having specified a number on this end. What that means is I have to use a forecast. Now, a couple of problems with a forecast. If my forecast is a ways into the future, it tends to be a monthly number. So maybe for next July, I need 1,000 for the month of July. And I don't know where in July, but somewhere around July, I need 1,000. And it might not be 1,000, but let's assume that that 1,000 is correct. But it's not, I don't need it all at the beginning of the month of July, and I don't need it all in the middle. I need it kind of spread out. So I have to make some judgments in there and play with the numbers to determine that PO release, because I am ordering in a different pattern. Depending on the size of the item and things like that, I may not be able to hold 1,000 of them in my warehouse. So I need them in groups of 100 and 10 different deliveries throughout the month. Multiple different ways to think of this. Now, if my customer gives me a 90-day lead time, and that is quite a surprise if I get that, if they give me that 90 days, I still don't have enough time to use the numbers. So I have to use the predicted or forecasted numbers, which I know are not correct, but I don't know in which direction they are incorrect. And I need to then go back and figure out how I'm going to release the purchase orders to my supplier so that I have a chance of having something. And the reality of what happens is my supplier sometimes doesn't even give me the 90 days, but if they do give me the 90 days and that 90 days doesn't line up with the forecast that I used to place my orders back to my supplier, I have to scramble. I have to firefight. I have to expedite. And what happens is that happens so often that we find ourselves completely in this firefight and expedite mode all the time. Not on every single part, but enough parts every day that we never really stop firefighting and expediting. So you can imagine the stress and the anxiety that happens in supply chain trying to predict what really is going to be needed and when it's really going to be needed, because the numbers given to the person in supply chain, we know they're not right. And if that person guesses wrong by too little and we short the customer, that person gets in trouble. And if they guess wrong by too much, finance is not happy and that person gets in trouble. And I call it the no-win situation we put our supply chain people in, because we give them information that's not true, expect them to act on it, and then if they act on it and however it turns out to be wrong, they're going to get yelled at for one side or the other. And this is the craziness of supply chain. What can we do about that? How can we handle that? And what other things do we see that are a problem here? That can be announced in another session. But the answer lies in the demand-driven methodology and changing our focus on precision and precise information that we know is wrong. And let's be a little bit more roughly right in our endeavors. Thanks for listening today, and please reach out, be in touch, becomedemandriven.com, or follow me, John Melby, on LinkedIn, and let's chat.